In this week's episode of Restore It, we're doing the only thing we can do, which is to build a new workshop. So apart from some of my stuff laying around, this is how the shop was left by the previous owners. The first thing to do was to sweep up and clear the rear of the shop so we could work on one half whilst using the other to store everything. I bet you can't guess which one of these Yamahas I'll be restoring over on the Rusty Nut Restorations channel. These workbenches from Arbor Garden Solutions are perfect for moving shops. They come apart and go back together again so easily. I think it takes about 15 screws to dismantle them like we have, and then one person can easily move each piece. Because this is the first time I've owned an industrial unit, we're just making noise because we can. It's a strange feeling not having to worry about disturbing someone. I can't wait to take full advantage of this when the shop's set up. Before we move on to work on repairing the floor, I have a very quick word from our sponsor, Opinion Outpost. Opinion Outpost is an easy way to make extra cash whilst you're doing the things that you already do. You could be watching Netflix, hanging out with friends, or even on a break at work whilst making extra cash. It's simple, you give your opinion, you get paid, and you spend that money on whatever you like. Amongst others, you can get Amazon and App Store gift cards, or get actual cash through PayPal. Like I said, you decide how you get paid and how you spend it. So click that link at the top of the video description to start making extra cash today. Big thanks to Opinion Outpost for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back in the workshop. With this half looking much better, we focused our efforts on filling in these large parts of missing floor that are just waiting to eat up absolutely everything I drop, ever. Well, not on my watch. We mixed up some cement and got to work on filling them in. Originally we were going to just fill the main crack, but my mild OCD meant that the next day we'd go over all of this and fill the entire thing across the entire room. Whilst Doug finished the first one off, I got started on painting the floor, which just so happens to be 4 times bigger than the last shop which I chose not to paint. I probably should have poured the paint closer to the place I was starting, eh? So I kind of underestimated the floor painting situation. This half is made up of 3 large rectangles. Each rectangle is just a little bit too big for a 5 litre can of floor paint to cover. It's also quite dark, so I'm thinking once everything is in place, like the workbenches and larger tools, I might go over with a second coat of lighter grey just over the parts that are showing. Doug finished off the rest of the cement work whilst I finished off the first rectangle. There's quite a few little indents in the floor that the paint gathers in, a small price to pay for not having to screen the entire shop floor, I guess. The next day I got to work on the other 2. The camera makes it seem smaller than it actually is. It took me 2 full days to get the rear half painted whilst doing a few other things as well. With half of the floor painted, I could then build the workbenches, get them into place and get them out of my way. So that's 6 benches built without their lower shelves and backboards, but what it meant is that I could get all of this out of the way. So I had a look whilst I was on my own at the placement of them, and it seemed as if they were going to fit pretty perfectly along the back wall. However, one thing that was bugging me was the old kickplate and dirty cream walls that we all know I couldn't just leave. So I ripped it off and bought a couple of cans of brilliant white paint. After giving the walls a quick brush down, I gave the bare brick a coat to get the wall ready for a full coat top to bottom. It was at this point that I decided to take down the old air system that was just leaking water and looked about 10 years old. The walls had a myriad of things attached to it, all of which I wasn't going to need, and so I removed it. The metal pipes and their fittings were so old and so stuck, I snapped a wide jaw spanner trying to undo them, at which point I got the angle grinder out and just cut it. The pipe went out of the building and into a room I don't always have access to. The previous owners must have had their compressor in there, and that's also where the oil supply for the heater must be, which could be empty, and that might be why it's not working. With everything off the wall, we could then paint over the rest of the old cream paint. That also took absolutely ages, but the room was already looking brighter even without the new LEDs. We then moved the workbenches into their place so we could clear the majority of the boxes on the other side. One by one, we filled the workbenches with hand tools and consumables before I started on the bigger stuff, which doesn't have a home yet. And that's about it for this episode. It doesn't seem like a lot of work from this video, but because it's such a big place, everything just takes longer than you expect. Another small price to pay for eventually having a workshop with enough space for several projects at once. This video was already late and I just wanted to get something out for you guys, so here's the progress we've made so far. It's going to take some time, but we will get there, and when we do, it'll be business as usual, if not more frequent than in recent times. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.